Welcome to School Zone, the show all about your local school districts here in the White Mountains. I'm your host, Amy Tregaskes from Show Low. I'm an educator, but mostly a parent. Today we have the new superintendent from the Show Low schools, Shad Housley, with us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Amy. Glad to be here with you today.
Thanks for coming. I appreciate it. I appreciate you taking your time out. This summer is busy, and it's the start of school, which is even busier. How long have you been on the job?
Oh, well, I've started July 1st, so it's been a very short time.
Yes.
And we've got a very short time before school starts, so it's probably the busiest time of year for me right now.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you. What I'd like to do is I would like to introduce you to our community. So I'd like to start by you telling us a little bit about yourself and your family and what brought you or drew you to Show Low.
Well, just briefly, I'm an Arizona native. I was born and raised in Cochise County, which my wife also was pretty much born and raised in Cochise County. And
I'm from Wilcox.
there you go.
I know Cochise County.
So in the Benson area, I was born in Sierra Vista and just stayed within that 30-mile radius most of my life, other than the 4 years I spent in South Dakota for my undergraduate. We moved back to Arizona and had in mind two places to come, and one would have been somewhere in the White Mountains or back home into Cochise County, and really ended up back in Cochise County and have spent the last 18 years there raising our family. I have a son who just graduated from high school, a daughter who will be a junior, an 8th grade son, and a 3rd grade son. So we have quite the age span there. So, but they are all excited to be up here. We thought long and hard about moving someplace after 18 years, but the opportunity to move to Show Low was always in the back of our mind. And when the opportunity came, we knew as a family that we had to pursue it, and we're grateful for the chance and the faith that the interview committees have put into us to take on this position and move forward. So we're glad to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you. We had the same thing. I just hope to be able to retire to the White Mountains. I love it here. I think you will love it here too. Yeah,
well, we're here for the long haul. We hope to be here for a long time. We have several years left in our careers. My wife's a teacher also, and so we plan to be here for a good long time. So that's our goal. We love the area. We've only actually lived here for a couple weeks now, and we've fallen in love with it. It's a wonderful place.
Well, thanks. You mentioned your wife is a teacher, and what is she going to be teaching, and where is she going to be teaching?
She's going to be teaching 1st grade at Whipple Ranch. She's been teaching now for right around 10 years, and she's very experienced. In my mind, she's one of the better teachers that are out there. She's very good at what she does and loves children, and through her career, she's had the opportunity to be nominated as for Cochise County Teacher of the Year and other things. So she's going to make a great addition to the staff at Whipple Ranch, and the kids will be fortunate to be in her class.
Well, that's great. I'm glad that you guys are all here. Tell me a little bit about your educational background, like what you have done to get to the position of superintendent.
Well, thanks for asking. Interesting, I mentioned that I went to South Dakota for my undergrad. I went to a small college in South Dakota that had two focuses, and one was nursing and the other was education. And so from the start, I felt like I had a good foundation in education as I moved into the career. I went back to our hometown in Benson and got to teach for a few years. And then I moved into the Benson School District, where I was there for a short time, and then they asked me to open and operate a district-sponsored charter school that was kind of like our White Mountain Institute. There was an alternative high school for students who had different needs in their life, and I ran that for 3 years as the principal and the director of that. And then they I moved into the middle school principal role and spent about 8 years there. And really got my feet grounded in administration there. And
Who was your superintendent at
my
the time?
superintendent at the time was Dr. David Woodall. He's been in Morenci over 20 years. He went to Benson for about 8 and then returned to Morenci where he is now. But I admire him, and I learned a lot from him as far as what it took to be a superintendent, what it takes to run an organization well, and used a lot of the principles that I learned from him in my principalship. In fact, a kind of a side note, there were 3 principals in the district that served under Dr. Woodall, and 2 of the 3 are now practicing superintendents. So I think he gave us all a good foundation to make that jump if we wanted to.
He's a good man.
Yeah, I believe so. And so we went, after that, Dr. Woodall was in his last year there, and kind of gave me the courage to make the jump to the superintendency. So I moved to Palmerine Elementary School District, which is a small K-8 district where I served as a superintendent for 3 years. And when the opportunity, as I said, came up in Show Low, I felt like this was the right fit, and it was the only place that I made the attempt to go. I either wanted to be in Palmerine or be in Show Low, and very fortunate to be here. And that's kind of the rounds of how I...
Well, tell me some of the things that you were able to do and accomplish as superintendent in Palmerine.
Well, when I came to Palmerine, one thing that schools have to focus on is student achievement. Mm-hmm. And the one way now, like it or not, whatever side of the fence you're on, the state has chosen to use now, it was Ames, but it's now Arizona Merit, AZ Merit, and that's the measurement to measure student achievement in individual school districts. And so as an administrator, a principal, a superintendent, we have to focus on how are we helping our children grow and achieve and prepare ultimately to move on into college or a career field or just into their adult life, whatever they choose to do. How are we preparing them? And when I went into Palmerine, we were, the state labels give labels, and it's like a report card. Mm-hmm. It's A, B, C, D, or failing, and Palmerine was doing well. They were, but it wasn't right where the community wanted it to be. They were a B minus, almost a C. And so myself and the teachers went to work on trying to find out what were the areas of concern, where was the greatest need, and how could we service that need and help the kids to really grow academically. And within that first year of being at Palmerine, we went from a B minus to a high A. In fact, we were the second highest performing elementary school in Cochise County that year.
That's exciting.
And it really, that process is the same process I went through in the previous year at Benson Middle School when, as a district, Benson School District went to the #1 school district in the state. The middle school was the one thing holding the district back because the elementary school had been performing at a high level for a number of years. The high school had gotten on board, and we were just waiting for the middle school to make that jump, and we were able to really grow in that year prior to becoming the #1 school district in the state as far as academics were concerned. And so I used that same model as I went to Palmerine, and it worked. Now the state tends to change the target sometimes, so it's really about, we're in this...
It's a moving target.
Exactly.
And it's like moving weekly, it seems like.
Sometimes it feels like that.
Yeah.
But right now with AZ Merit, we're still trying to find out where that target
Mm-hmm.
lies, and I think all districts around the state are trying to figure out exactly how to massage that target and where is it, and where do we need to make the adjustments in our curriculum or our instruction in order to to meet that.
Well, and the state doesn't even know right now what exactly they're going to use to give a school a letter grade.
Right.
They're asking for advice on that.
Right, and that's a thing right now that they're taking comments on, and it's important to provide that feedback to them on what makes a good label. So we're going to get a preliminary this year as it comes out, and it'll kind of tell us, well, if we had a label, this is what it would be. But I think as we move forward into next year, it behooves everyone to really look at your curriculum and how are we moving. Right now, the only target that we can compare ourselves to is the state average.
Right.
Because last year AZ Merit was introduced. This year we took it and
well, and last year the majority of your classes here at Sholo did it paper based, and this year they did all computer. Even that's got to have an impact on it.
Right, and the type, not only the delivery method, but how the students approach the test and how the questions are being asked.
Well, and the mentality, it doesn't really count for anything, so can I just click through it? Yeah, I understand that.
I was visiting with a cousin of mine who lives in the Chandler School District, and she serves as a paraprofessional in that district, and she was assisting the teachers with testing and the frustration that they experienced just on the paper test even, because it wasn't I read the question and I answered A because A was the best answer. I had to answer A, B, and C because those all created portions of the question. And then online in Pomeranian, we took it all online, and to be able to manipulate the mouse, to manipulate the problem, to come up with an answer that you really had to, you have to dig it. It's not only about teaching students anymore. It's not just about teaching good reading and writing and math practices. Now you have to also teach them how to manipulate the way through complex problems and complex things to come up with answers. And
I love that part about it. I know that the goal is to get more rigorous, and I love what you've shared. I feel like you're sound academically. What have you done to help build community as a superintendent? And what do you think we should do here to help unify the community?
Well, in order to unify, and the school in most cases is the hub of the community. And the reason that is because that's where the kids spend most of their time, and they're involved in activities. They're involved in sports and in drama and other clubs and band, and I think in order to continue to maintain that hub, we have to have really good programs. We have to. Let me back up just a second, if I could.
Yep.
When I was the middle school principal in Benson, I witnessed what I felt like was an interesting phenomenon, and that was, when I would have parents in my office, most of them carried or harbored ill feelings about their middle school experience, because not very many of us enjoyed the middle school years, the junior high time. It's a tough transition when you're growing up as a kid. You're awkward socially. You're changing from a little kid to a young adult, and it's a difficult transition. So our experience was tough. And so I found that the challenge in bringing those parents in and opening the door up, some of them were apprehensive of coming in because they remembered what they experienced.
Right.
And so one thing that we have to do is open our doors up and invite parents to be a part of the education. We're educating their children, and a partnership is probably the best way to go about doing that. And you know, in order to build that sense of community, there has to be an openness, a transparency, a reaching out to grab hands and show partnership.
A willingness to come on a show.
A willingness to come on a very a show that kind of might make you nervous, right?
Yes, thank you.
And I'm glad to be here, but it's those things that you know, it's also, it's the experience of Friday night football. It's the experience of the seven brides for seven brothers. It's those experiences that can bring us together as a community and help us to experience the growth of our school district together.
And see all these great things that the school is doing. I love when people or entities highlight the great things that are going on for our youth.
Yeah, and not only for our youth, because that, I mean, ultimately isn't that why we're in business, is for the kids, but we have professionals in the classrooms that are doing an amazing job, and I've met with a lot of them in Show Low over the last few weeks and in June, and really a very sincere heart, and they don't necessarily have to be in the classroom right now because it's summertime, but I've walked school campuses and seen teachers
there.
dedicating their time and their energy to that, and we need to celebrate that a little bit too. And I feel like as we do that as a community, experiences bring community together. It's not necessarily one thing in my mind, but it's experiences that you share together that bring you together. When a community goes through a tragedy, for instance, what's happening in Dallas right now, they're going to experience a unifying nature because they're going through that together. When we experienced 9/11 as a nation, we came together as a nation because of that tragedy. Now, I'm not suggesting that we need a tragedy to come together, but there's great experiences that could pull us.
What about getting a building built? Didn't you do that in Palmerine?
Yeah, we have a small school site, and we had some issues with the construction that happened in 2000. The agency that was there before the School Facilities Board built the building. It was kind of a rush project with very little oversight, and there were some major deficiencies in the construction. And so I went to the School Facilities Board and invited them out to the site to look at what we were dealing with. And ultimately, we had the whole building remodeled. Essentially, we received just over $1 million to renovate and restore our building to what it should have been for the kids in the first place.
That's when they weren't giving money to schools to do anything with buildings.
Well, the interesting part is that when we started the process, the state was only allocating $15 million to the School Facilities Board a year.
Right.
And we received $1 million of that.
Wow.
Which, on one end, from this perspective today, I feel a little bad because there's a lot of other school districts that can need it. But my job as that superintendent at that time was to fight for those kids, fight for that community.
And then what did you do as a community?
As a community, they rallied around and supported that.
That's great.
And I think that it's been a good thing for them to experience, to see that good things can happen, and they're continuing to do a few other things with the School Facilities Board in order to make that happen.
Well, I think it's an interesting balance, the role of the superintendent. It really is. It's like you're on a teeter-totter, is what I visualize it. And on one side, you've got the whole business of running a school. On the other side is more, you're answering to the community. You're hired by the board. The board is elected by the public. And so you're having to balance that too. Can you tell us a little bit about what the actual role and job of the superintendent is?
Oh, you're right. There's a lot of things to balance and to juggle. I like to think of it, if you look at an organization, a typical business organization in the community, a large business would have a board of directors and they would have a CEO, and that's ultimately what my role is with this business, the business of school. And I have to balance both sides of it. I do need to make sure that I'm in touch and have a feel for what the community needs and desires. And the board is a lot of the times the sounding voice of the community, but not always. I still need to reach out and have opportunities to visit with community members and hear their thoughts and their ideas. Their concerns come in also. I mean, I have to listen to their concerns, but I really feel my role would, I also want to invite those innovative thinkers to come in and say, hey, what about this? I saw this happening somewhere else. Have you thought about that? And those are good conversations to have. Now you flip on the other side, and really I have a great leadership team with our site principals. They're really where the rubber meets the road. They are the day-to-day operators of their schools individually. My job is to take what the community's told me through the board or individually, and take what we're experiencing in the school sites and how they want to operate the schools, and blend those together.
Bring it all together.
And then to give the district a vision and a focus and a direction. I like to call it setting targets. I really I love archery. I love shooting my bow. My kids enjoy it. And if I take my bow out of the box from the store and I shoot it, likelihood of me knowing exactly where that arrow is going to go is not very good. I don't know where it's going to go. But as I sight it in and I hone those in and I practice more, I'm able to narrow my groups. And ultimately that's what my job is to help the district narrow our focus into a target. And then as we go about our businesses, we have a lot of different arrows. We have
decide what those priorities are.
Right.
And I need to get you back on another show and discuss what the priorities are. That
Absolutely.
would be great.
We spent about 10 hours yesterday going through, with my leadership team, just going through what is it that could be our priorities and having those discussions. Because it could be curriculum, it could be whatever, and all those are essential pieces to get honed in, but which one's the priority for this year? Which one needs our attention the most? And and how can we do that inside the framework of our budget? And I think that's really crucial. And a large portion of my job is to be able to say we need this for the district and prioritize our budget to make that happen. And that's become ever increasingly difficult over the last, since 2008, when we had the dip in the economy.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I would like to bring you back sometime and have us focus on what your priorities are, and then maybe even do a follow-up show that discusses how you've met your priorities. That would be great. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us here on the School Zone, and we'll see you again soon.